Hello and welcome to Celebrating Marvel Studios. I'm your host, Constance Miller. I'm going to preface this video by saying yes, there are going to be some spoilers. This isn't going to be a review, much more a discussion, let's say, about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I would also like to say that I was not a big fan of Guardians Volume 2. So I decided to rewatch that right before watching Volume 3 on Disney Plus, and it turns out that I'm not sure what my quabbles were with Volume 2. It was a lot better than what I remembered it being, so that being said, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This movie is a lot darker in tone than the first two Guardians movies. That is for certain, and it was really good to see Rocket's origin story, and I think going forward, which let me talk about that a little bit later, as we get more toward the end of this video. And I really did appreciate that darker aspects, that more seriousness. While there was the typical humor that you're used to with the Guardians films, I just really appreciated the more serious tones of this movie, and the scope of it was so much less broad. I would say it was more compact and confined, more to what was going on with Rocket and his story, and everyone else kind of just had their own little story arcs throughout the rest of the movie. And I really liked pinpointing on Rocket. I think that was a great idea. I think that taking a character that we don't know much about and giving the backstory, sometimes it's like, oh, it ruins all the mystery, some people might say, and I'd love it. Like, I remember back when, in the X-Men comics, that they decided to reveal Wolverine's origin story. Everybody was like, no, but it turned out to be a great story. And I don't think it's really hurt the character since. I haven't read the comics in a while, but back onto the subject at hand. Great moments from all of the cast, I have to say. I do think not the Nebula, the Gamora stuff was a little too awkward. I think that could have been fleshed out a little bit more. It just seemed horribly awkward, and maybe that was just the intent, that it was supposed to feel awkward because it was awkward. But I just think from a storytelling standpoint that it just felt awkward as a viewer because it wasn't fleshed out well enough to do it any justice. Instead of just like, oh, this is awkward, maybe it'll make the audience feel awkward. Well, if that's the case, then our job is done. Well, okay, that was done, but it wasn't really fleshed out. So that's I think one of the only few gripes that I have about this movie. I thought Nebula and Mantis and Drax and Groot didn't really have a whole lot to do, but made up for it in the end with his little speak, which was very very touching and very apropos. That was great. The visuals and the effects were stunning. I love it when you can take a CGI character and put them in this world and think that they actually belong there, that they're actually there. And all the Guardians movies have done that. And even like Rocket's, well, I would have to say there was a little bit of a disappointment with Groot in this movie in regards to the effects. That would be the only exception. But yeah, even in the Avengers movies, Rocket and Groot seemed to really have a good presence and didn't feel like they were like some tacked on thing done in post to create a CGI character. Star-Lord, I'm really indifferent about Star-Lord. I think if he's going to mature, like he kind of does at the end of the movie, I'm not sure what his trajectory is going to be going forward, and he is coming back. Star-Lord, the legendary Star-Lord will return, is what the tagline said at the end of the movie. So it's interesting to see what his story is going to be. I'm not sure what story there is to tell, but yeah, that'll be interesting. And considering by the end of the film that most of the Guardians have gone their own separate ways, chances are we're not going to be seeing a lot of them again, which is unfortunate. The new team of Guardians is going to include Groot and Rocket Raccoon, Kraglin, Adam Warlock, one of the children from the High Evolutionaries compound, and Cosmo, which I think is an interesting team and a good one that can go forward and potentially lead to many more films, because most of the cast is CGI. So that's interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about Adam Warlock. I think if they plan on doing something with him in the future, I'm okay with what they did, but I don't see that happening, really. So that was kind of a disappointment there. And the High Evolutionary, I thought, I'm familiar with the character from the comics and from an episode of the 90s X-Men cartoon. So I was really excited to see how they were going to portray him on screen. And I thought it was wonderfully done. I didn't write down the actor's name because I knew that I wouldn't remember it by memory. And I don't want to try to butcher it, so I'll list it down here. Phenomenal performance. Very very dramatic. I would almost say kind of like a drama queen, but a very, very smart and brilliant drama queen. And I really like the aspect of it that you necessarily didn't play him. He didn't play him as a villain per se, as more as someone with an agenda trying to do good for the universe, but it's just misguided in his approach. And I thought that was kind of nice. It was kind of like a Magneto kind of aspect to the character. So it kind of broke the mold a little bit as far as the typical MCU baddies. And that was kind of nice. I like that. The Cosmo bit with being a bad dog thing was just hit over the head far too many times. And I know they made a crack at it. But it was just too much. For as little time on screen that Cosmo had, it was just like, oh, okay. And then at the end, oh, she's a good dog. Oh, that was so contrived and forced. It was just, yeah. I would much prefer if the whole Cosmo thing be cut out. Kraglin, on the other hand, was underused, although his redemption scene was definitely worth it. I think I would have spent a little bit more time on exploring how he feels inadequate throughout the film, and then leading up to his redemption scene. A little bit more of that, and I think that scene would have really hit home a lot better. Cut out the Cosmo, more Kraglin. That would have been okay with me. To me, the breakout star of the film is Mantis, and I've loved her since her introduction in the last movie. She was the bright spot in the holiday special. Pom Klementieff, TF maybe, is the actress's name. And I just think that she does a wonderful job with this character, and I'm not familiar with the character from the comics. I'm sure it's probably a severe departure, but just loved Mantis in this movie, and I'm gonna be kind of sad if we don't see her again. Like, I would really love the MCU to find a way to work her in somewhere. Please keep Mantis around. Please. I beg you. So overall, I was really pleased with this film. I do feel that maybe it was a little bit too lengthy. I started to feel the length of it right before the third act. So I knew I had to sit through another good chunk of time. But I would have to say that aside Cosmo, there really wasn't anything that was wasted as far as screen time. Well, maybe except some of the extra Adam Warlock scenes. So a little bit less Adam Warlock, no Cosmo. That doesn't really count for a lot of the film's time. Yeah, I think they could have trimmed it down quite a bit, and it could have flowed a little bit better. But other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's probably my favorite of the three, and it's going to be interesting to see where Guardians goes from here. It's going to be interesting to see where Star-Lord goes from here. And, well, at this point in time, it's going to be interesting to see where the MCU in general goes from here. So, share your thoughts down below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you are inclined to help watch the channel grow, you can do so by clicking the links in the description. And as always, love and light to you all.